Our first speaker for today, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Anuradha Batabyal, who grew up in the beautiful city of Kolkata. Yes, for sure. She's from Flame University. She's always been inspired by nature, especially watching animals in their natural habitat. She followed her passion and did her PhD in ecology from the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, where she studied how the Indian rock agama or lizard adjusts to the urban landscape. Following this, she worked at the University of Calgary, understanding learning and memory formation. Currently, she is an assistant professor of environmental studies at Flame University, and her research encompasses ecology, evolution, and cognition across the tree of life. Her interest also lies in science outreach, reading, hiking, and painting. This is the perfect platform to invite you, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us. Anuradha ma'am would be talking to us today about how do animals use their different senses to communicate. The theme of our festival are the 8 senses. We know the box standard 5. We talk about them all the time. But there are also 3 other hidden senses that we also want to explore in our festival. So I'm very, very happy to welcome Dr. Anuradha Batabyal today for the first speaker.
So let's all imagine that you are in a rainforest and we are walking down the rainforest and you hear these beautiful sounds of birds chirping, of the leaves rustling. And you also see some of these glimpses of slight color and light. Now these aren't just any random sights and sounds, but they are the language of nature. And it's always speaking about different stories of survival, of love, of life. And I want you all to experience that in today's session here, where we'll start off by where nature began first its language. So it's always communicating all the time. It's just that we need to be aware of how to hear about it. So let's go back a little bit in time to when the earth actually formed. So the earth formed about very long time back, about 4.4 billion years ago. And slowly, once the earth's geology and its chemistry started changing, the atmosphere was filled up with oxygen and life began to come up. So there were these very tiny unicellular organisms which first started out, and they slowly evolved to give rise to multicellular cells and organisms. So organisms started from tiny and they slightly became bigger and more complex sometimes. But even those tiny unicellular ones as well, to the multicellular ones, everybody needed to communicate to each other. Slowly with also when animals started communicating and they started reproducing sexually, lots of diverse life forms started emerging in this earth. And with all of those life forms starting to emerge, trees started coming up, lots of bigger bodied animals like zebras, giraffes, all the whales, everything, fishes to amphibians, lizards, everything started coming up. And all of these creatures needed to communicate using different senses. So slowly we are the newest organisms in this earth and everything else has come up before us. Now when we came about and what this conference is also about, we also started using all our senses which we have. But I would say that we as humans are mostly jack of many trades, but not really the masters of any of those. But you will see that in lots of animal groups, they have mastered some of their senses so uniquely and so profoundly that it's really hard even for us to understand all of that language that lies out there in nature. And slowly, as animals started getting bigger, they also started living in groups. So communication helped us in communicating with each other. And so we started living in groups. Animals also did that. They would live in groups to survive this wild landscape. So they can run away from predators, they can form their groups, communicate with each other. If somebody notices a predator, they can warn each other out. They can also build their own homes, so like ant hills or termite hills, that would help them to weather different harsh conditions in nature. Also, just not for survival, but communication was also important to us to attract our mates. So there are these birds in these savannas which are called widow birds, and the males have these really long tails in those. And the males would come and try to woo the females using their really long black tails. Okay? So starting from these widow birds to the beautiful train of the peacocks, color and visual communication is everywhere in nature. They are full of colors of different kinds, and they are communicating some language, some message to each other. Now, if I ask you what animal comes to your mind if I just say color change, something which changes color? Chameleons, exactly, that's what. So these are those chameleons which change color, and all of us have heard stories about chameleons all throughout our lives, starting from our childhoods in lots of different folklores to everywhere, right? Now, most of the time we think that chameleons change color because they want to camouflage, they want to blend in their surrounding. But along with that, they also communicate about their mood. If they want to fight, if they are aggressive, if they are not in the mood today and they just want to be submissive today. So they communicate all of that using these colors. But is it just the chameleons that can change color like this? So I started my PhD in Bangalore, and in those rocky outcrops of southern India all around, I found this other very unique lizard species, which is called the rock agama. Its name is the rock agama, and what it does is, it can also change its color super fast. So when a male, and it is no less like magical than the chameleons, so the males can change color very fast, and let's hope this plays. Okay, the video isn't playing, but let's see. So the males, basically what they do is they change their colors to these two kinds. So one single male can look like orange and black when it wants to woo females, and it can look like that, yellow and orange, when it wants to fight with other males. And all of these colors, like yellows, orange, blacks, they all come from their diet. So whatever these animals are eating, it helps them to generate these colors. So they are all called like pigment colors or pigment-based colors. So when a female is looking at this male, she actually can also understand what this male might have eaten, how healthy it is, what is its hormonal conditions like, all sorts of things. So it is not just that they are showing it off, they are giving out some information. And that is used by the others, the recipients of these signals, and they would come, either they can choose the male based on that, or they can reject the male based on that. So these are one of the lizard species which are found all over. Like these group of lizards are found all across India and in a lot of other places as well, like in Africa, in Australia. These are agamid groups, and they are beautifully color changing organisms, which we didn't really know of. Most of us, we think of chameleons, but these are one beautiful group that is found as well. Now, it's not just that pigments are useful in color changing. Animals also do so by using their structure. Okay? So the structural colors are such that it depends on what light is falling on the skin and what wavelength is getting reflected. So whatever we see in and around us in light, it's the exact light wavelength that reflects back, we see that color. And most of these peacock feathers and these beautiful morpho butterflies which have really nice blue and green iridescence, those are the work of structures. So blues are mostly formed by structure. There is no blue pigment in nature. It's only found in one bacteria and one butterfly. Other than that, everything that we see around us which is blue in nature, they all come from structure. So the animals or the skin and their feathers are structured in a way that only the blue wavelength of light is reflected back at us, and we that's why see it as blue. So in different lighting conditions, the blue will look slightly different to us based on the lighting. And these sort of structure and functional colors, pigments, they are all present also in this group of lizards which I worked with as well. They are found in the Western Ghats. They are called the superb fan-throated lizards. As you see, they have this beautiful blue colored fan. So they display to their males and females, they have this blue patch, a black and an orange. So they have all forms of colors, pigments and structure all together in one organism. And what the blues signal are very different from what the orange is talking about. So when they are looking, they are showing off that blue, it is towards the males and they want to fight. So the males only look at this blue and the females pay attention to the orange, and they give out very different kinds of information. So blue or structural colors, they develop mostly when we are born and during our development. So if the animal is stressed during development, the blue might not be such bright or such iridescent, the structures might not have formed properly. But what orange gives us is that what has it eaten right now, how is its immunity, its health, the current condition of that animal. So females might be paying more attention to those signals. But it is not that simple, and like how I'm explaining, it is very tricky to also understand signals of animals, because we don't really know of everything that they are communicating, also through all the sensory channels that they are using, because it is beyond our sensory capabilities. So a lot of animals use senses which are beyond what we see or observe. Like this flower looks yellow to us, like a sunflower, but that's how it appears to a butterfly because it has UV, and this is how it appears to the bees which visit all these flowers, because the bees can see UV, but they cannot see red pigment. So these beautiful red, yellow, orange flowers which we look at and we think that, oh, the animals are also getting attracted to that color, that's not the case. They might look at it very differently, okay, because they can see UV. And they have very different cone cells in their eyes, which we don't have. We have only 3. They can have multiple. They can have some interchangeable other kinds of cone cells. So their vision is very different from us. Now let's shift our gears slightly and look at some other sense, because it is not just sight and vision that animals communicate with. They also communicate using sounds. So let's go to a place where sound is mostly the king and light is very rare, which is the depths of the ocean. So in the depths of the ocean, where light doesn't really penetrate that much, sound is what animals use to communicate. And these are the whales. The whales, like all these baleen whales, blue whales, humpback whales, they all communicate using these beautiful songs. But most of these songs also we are not able to hear, because these songs are in a range which is much below our hearing abilities. But now with advancement of technology, we can hear these because we have ramped it up, but we don't really decipher the meaning of all of these complexity that lies out there in the songs of these animals. It's not just that animals communicate in places where there is no light, but also up in the land. So imagine now we'll move from the oceans to the rainforests of Central America, this is. And if you walk around, you might hear something like this. Can anyone guess what is calling? Huh? Yeah, it's a frog. Okay, so that's a frog. That's these frogs, which you see there. They are really tiny frogs. They are called the Tungara frogs. And what they do is they'll sit in this shallow water pool and give out these calls and make these ripples in the water. Okay. Now these calls are very interesting. So if you hear again, let me play it again. Okay. Yeah. So what it is doing is it's doing a whine and a chuck. So it's doing like, so when you see that, that's the call structure like. So it's doing a whine, then whine, chuck, whine, chuck, like that. Okay. So these chucks are the ones which the females really like. So the females really like them if they make more of these chucks, just not like whine all the time. Okay. So, but the problem here is, even if these, like the females really are attracted to these chucks, there's also somebody else who is also attracted to these chucks. So there are these prime bats, which are the predators of these frogs, and they can also get attracted to these chucks and locate the male frogs very easily. So now there is a trade-off of this signal. The male is trying to attract the female, so it wants to make more of these chucks, but it becomes easier for the bat to localize those chucks, and it becomes easier for the bat to come and grab its prey. So always not all signals are working in the best of for the purpose, But there are also these prying animals who are out there who can also tap into those signals and get an advantage of it. Now, these are in another part of the world, but even here, this is Western Ghats, and I used to work in this landscape. This is during daytime now, not night. I would walk around these streams and hear something like this. Any guesses? Very similar. These are also frogs, and these are these tiny frogs, which are sitting on that rock. They are called the dancing frogs. And why are they called the dancing frogs? Because they just don't call, they also dance. They will use their legs to make this movement, which is called a foot flagging or a dancing movement. And these frogs also make these calls like they have these different syllables. So it's doing chick, 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 like that. So most frogs, they'll make these complex calls. It's not just one single syllable, or like if I am singing sa, it's not just sa, they'll have something else along with it. Okay? So they'll do this dancing display, and they actually kick each other out of the rocks, like the males, they will do this. And it is used to ward off other males from their territory. So they don't like other males sitting on their rock, which is their home and that is their territory. So if somebody else comes on their rock, the male would make that display and sometimes actually kick the other one out of that rock and throw him into the water. It's super funny to watch them on field doing that, and we feel that even females also watch that, and maybe they choose the males who are better at fighting, better at throwing the other male off. So these are the kind of signals. This is somewhat like a combination that you see, right, of some sound as well as something visual as well is associated. And who doesn't like singing and dancing individuals, right? We all love singers and dancers. But songs are also, like when I think of some animal which sings, what first comes to our minds are also birds, right? Because that's what we have always heard of, like singing birds, songbirds. So, but I'll now play the most simplest songs of a songbird. Songbirds sing things from like very simple to very complex songs, but this is the simplest one. I don't think it will appear that melodious to you, but let's hear it. Okay, play. Okay, I know you might be thinking that that's not very melodious. I don't know why females are attracted to that, but it might be the Kishore Kumar and Mohammad Rafi of zebra finches, even if it is not for us. So these are the zebra finches, and they are the simplest songbirds that we know of. Like as in science, most of the work in songbirds occur with these zebra finches. They are easy, tiny birds to keep and like work on and study their songs, because even though we hear so many different kinds of songs, it's very hard to study them. And this is the simplest one. So what they do is, they are making something which the song is like chick, 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 wah, chick, wah, chick, 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 like that, okay? There are 3 to 5 different syllables. So they are singing like sa, re, ga, ma, something like that. But what is very interesting in them is that they just sing one song for their entire life. So each bird has only one song to perfect in their entire life, nothing else they have to do. And when they don't have, like when they are born, they listen to their fathers and they copy those songs, okay? So one zebra finch, maybe that's the father, he sings a song which has 3 different syllables like sa, re, ga, and these 3 males, his sons, will copy his songs, will try to copy his songs actually. But sometimes there can be errors in copying or memorizing something. So what they do is, these zebra finches, they'll practice. Just like us, we practice at home, and then if you have to go and perform a song, then you go and perform. They do exactly that. They are going to perform to the female. So their audience are these female birds, but they keep on practicing, okay? So they'll try to always attend, and while practicing, it does not really matter that whether they are singing sarega or garesa, okay. So just those, the syllables, how they are placed out does not matter to them. But what matters is that if they are singing the sa correctly or not. So that's what they are trying to achieve through their riyaz, because the females pay very fine attention to if the sa is perfect or not. It does not matter if the syllables are here and there a little bit, whether it is ABC or CBA. So these are the systems of communication in these very simple songbirds, and there is a huge still open field to study all of these complexities and what these animals are actually paying attention to. So sometimes the male can try and also improvise, okay. So they will improvise these songs as well. And females come and choose the male that she wants to, she likes. And again, her sons would copy the song of their father, and the daughters will always have a preference for their father's song, okay. So that's how the system moves on and on in their generations. So we heard a lot of sounds and visual things, and all of these are also sometimes mixed together. So it's a multi-component or multi-sensory experience that I'm sure you all will have that experience here during the Creative Lab Festival as well. If we look at some of these animals like this beautiful peacock, what comes to mind? We would definitely think that yes, the peacock is showcasing all its beautiful, the beautiful tail, these feathers which are so visually attractive, right? But it is not just that, because again, our sensory abilities are very limited. We can only see what the visually attractive part of it is, but we cannot hear what the peacock also does. So what it does, it also moves its train, right? So it's always moving its wings, and that sends out these infrasonic waves across the vegetation where they are. And that helps the females to locate these peacocks, because where the peacocks live, it's a forest and there is a lot of vegetation. So sometimes the visual signal might not be able to travel that far. So the infrasonic sound waves help the females to locate the male, and then if they come closer, then they might pay attention more to the visually attractive forms of those. I want you to listen to some of these and guess. Okay, so the first one is very easy. It's bird songs that we generally hear all around us. So pay attention just to listen to it. Okay. Now listen to this one and tell me who or what you think is making this. What's that sound? Check. I'll play it again. It's like a camera, right? Correct. It's a camera. And what is this? This like a it's like a siren. Yeah, ambulance or whatever. It's like a siren, right? Okay. Let's hear this. This we hear every day. We go out in the street. Yeah, it's traffic noise. That's all. Okay, cars, bikes, whatever, moving. Now this middle one, it was a click of a camera and the sirens, right? And what actually makes these are these birds. So those are the, I'll stop this, yeah. So this sound is made by this bird. It is not, it mimics the sound of the camera and of sirens. So I wanted to give you all of these beautiful features and language of nature, and then bring you all to think of what or how we are changing that landscape. So now the signals of these animals are shifting because what they hear in and around themselves. What they hear in the forests are sometimes these sirens or camera clicks all the time, basically. So the bird is picking those sounds up and it is trying to incorporate those now in its signaling, okay? And nature, with all its might and visual beauty and soundscapes, helps all these creatures to live in harmony, starting from those rainforests to these coral reefs, where these reefs also emit sound, which we don't really think about. They're very visually stunning, but they also emit this sound. And all of these tiny coral larvae, they come back to more of these complex sounds. When they hear a reef singing, that's where they know that the reef is healthy because lots of animals are there, and they would come back and settle in those areas. But now what is happening is there are these mass bleaching that is happening around the coral reefs, and so it becomes hard for the reefs to get back to their normal selves. So let's take a moment and think of how we are changing these ecosystems and how the sounds of nature can now vanish off if we continue to do what we are doing. So the symphony might be slowly vanishing. Thank you, everyone. If you want to reach out to me, you can do that. Yeah, I've put up my email address. And if you have any questions, I'm very happy to take those.
Questions, anyone? That was an amazing talk. Thank you so much. I have a lot of questions myself, but I'll open it up to the audience if anyone has any questions to ask.
That zebra
Finch.
was very interesting for me, and so I wanted to ask that, like you said, if they listen to their parents' voice, and if the parent is suppose saying sarega, they will
Yes,
memorize
it's
that.
that.
So, so does that get carried?
Across generations. Yes, it does. But sometimes they also improvise. So it is not going to be the exact same all throughout. Like maybe my grandfather used to sing that and my son would also sing that. It might not be the exact same. They might change like one. Like instead of sarega, they might sapaga. They might do that later. So some of them change one syllable slightly while practicing. But most of the time they will copy exactly their father's song. Especially what they have is they have an internal template, like when we also practice maybe some musical instrument or song, we know when we are singing sa correctly or not, because we have heard it and we know what is a correct sa, right? So that's what happens to them. That's what they want to achieve. So they have an internal template. They know where they want to go. Okay, my sa should sound like that. And they have these systems inside their brain which tells them that. Like if they hit the correct note, they know it because they feel like joy, how we feel. When we hit the correct note, that the exact same thing happens to them. So it's called a dopamine signaling that happens in us as well. So it's a reward system that happens. So if I hit the correct note, I know I have hit the correct note. So that's how they also like learn and practice. But it's very interesting, they also sometimes, when they are practicing, they are very into it. Like they want to practice and make it perfect. But when they are performing to a female, it's not the same. That time they will ignore some of their mistakes, okay? Because it's same for us. If we are performing and if I'm paying more attention to my mistakes, then my flow will go off, right? So I should ignore it that time and just go on with it. But while practicing, I want to make it better. So they do that.
And do they learn only from their fathers and
Yes.
the mother?
No. So the fathers only sing, like the males only sing. That's why.
Any other questions?
I know a lot of people who are adopting a lot of large forests
Yes.
to maybe do something better.
Yeah.
That's currently changing like
Yes.
the environment. I know it's not like a quick process or something that can be fixed in a short span of time. But to what extent do you think we can kind of
Revive.
recover from the damage that we already?
I think we won't be able to go back to where it was, but that is still okay. we don't have to go back to where it was, because things always change. The nature of this world and the nature of evolution is that things will change. But what we are doing right now is a very fast and rapid change, which might lead to the downfall of lots of things. So to halt that and to make it at least where we are, at least to make that place the same, that is a good idea to do, what people are doing now, like restoring forests or even like small gardens and parks in and around the cities. Even those help a lot of animals, because animals adapt very fast to any changes. But they need some basic necessities to do that. So even if there are small parks around and nature reserves around, it would still be able to hold on to the diversity of life that we have right now. It might not be the same numbers, but that's still okay. It's better than losing everything. So, yeah.
So my question is related to what you said earlier, that a lot of this, studying this is difficult because we are limited in our sensory capabilities.
Yes.
Especially with the whale song that you showed, right? How would you even know where to look? How would you even know that you're supposed
Exactly.
to
So these came about actually with the advancement of technology. So they had these sound recorders, which can record from infrasonic to ultrasound. And later, yes, exactly. So you're recording the sound of oceans. And then later you analyze it. So then you can hear. And then you divide it according to these syllables, and okay, they are singing these complex songs, but we still don't know what those songs mean, what they are communicating. Like in the zebra finches, we know, okay, there are these different short syllables, but maybe we still don't know what each one means. Like, does sa mean something else than re? Like, no idea.
Even there, when you said that the daughter has a preference for the father,
Yes.
isn't that not so good for the daughter? When you want them to breed outside.
Yeah, but in zebra finches, that is what it is. Like, they have these different lines. So every like individual has its own line of preference, kind of. So the initial diversity was there, but they still maintain that same line. Like, so they are like different families of, or whatever, like that, I say.
We keep hearing about not seeing sparrows anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
So has that something to do with communication? Is it that they missed, they lost out on something and that's why they're missing, or what really is the?
So there are lots of theories on the sparrow, but I think it's more to do with the kind of communication also. So sparrows also communicate using vocal signals, and more inside very bustling cities. The noise can also be like a blockage for communication. So sometimes animals, that's why, move. So what happened to the sparrows is they have moved. They are not present in the main part of the city, in the hub of the city, but they have moved to the outskirts. So there you will see those. So that's what happens. Like, they are like, yeah, it's like, I don't want to live in a place where it's full of sound. I would want something separate, which is more calm. So that's what happens to the sparrows. And especially also like a lot of these other urban birds like crows, pigeons, their numbers grow quite a bit. So then there's also competition between animals for food, for space, for everything. And these also attack the sparrows, so then they again move.
Somewhat like humans also want
Yes.
to move out of
Yes.
urban areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a follow-up, similar questions to the two questions asked. Because whatever you said, every time you were talking about sounds, or you were talking about things changing, or even the zebra finches, kind of having different lines. It feels like there's so many parallels to humans.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
Do you
Yes.
have any sense of, are there certain sounds that female humans find more attractive in male humans? Like chuck, 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 chuck. I mean, it's valid for humans or any,
Yeah.
Is there any research on that? Or is that
So there are some research on like singers and dancers and how they are like very attractive. For any, like, yeah, as a partner, I would be attracted to somebody who can perform something. So it's like a skill. And what it gives us is that if they are good at maybe singing or dancing or any skill, it also makes like your brain much more capable in problem solving. So those are also studied in even these animals, that animals which use more complexity in their communication, they are also good at solving other problems. So that is the main cue that, okay, maybe I'm tuned to those issues more, those phenomena of, okay, those are the more important for survival of my offsprings. And this is just the outward representation of it because they're linked. Like problem solving and the brain's capability to complex problem solving might be linked to how complex skills I can perform. So yeah, even in us, yeah, there are lots of research on humans, and sometimes it's hard to also know that, okay, like, okay, is that true? And then, yes, but a lot of parallels, yeah, from the animal world to us.
And I guess one last question was just all the examples you gave were females choosing male.
Yes.
Are there examples in nature of the opposite? Being
Yes.
true? Like,
So there are fewer. So males also choose females, but they are fewer in numbers because always in nature what happens is females are a rarer sex. So they are less in number. Females are less, males are more. So that's why females are always choosy because they have lots of options to choose from. That's why the males are colorful, they are displaying, they have to get a mate, so they'll do all the work. The females are just going to choose. Also because the female is investing a lot more, she has to raise the eggs, so she's investing a lot more energy, so she's the choosier one. But in some cases, there are some groups, in fishes, there are in seahorses, where males are choosier because there the males take care of the youngs. There's one frog also in which the males take care of the young, so then the males are choosy and the females would do something, like the females would showcase.
super interesting. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Let's give a round of applause for Dr. Anuradha. Thank you so much. That's super.